Welcome back to Classy and Chic Jim's podcast. My name is Anita and I'm your host and founder. And I just want to say hello. I hope your week is going well. I hope you are feeling great and I hope everything is going well in your life. But if it's not, here's a reminder that life takes time and every day is a new opportunity to continue working on your hopes and dreams. But it's also an opportunity for us to rest. I don't know who needs to hear this, but sometimes it's okay to rest and it's okay to find people in your life that you can say, you know what? I failed before, but I want to try again. And so when you have people like that in your life, you grow intentionally. And so today we're going to talk about relationships. So if you're somebody who is married, this podcast might not be for you, but if you want to share it with somebody who's dating or in a relationship, that'll be great. But I'm just going to talk from a very authentic point of view with regards to relationships and the way that we treat each other. And I think that it's so important to realize that, no matter what, whenever you're dating, that's another human being. And that's somebody that God loves. And so if we can't treat each other right, then how do we think that we can move forward and even be in a relationship that's long term because we can't understand each other in the dating phases? So one thing that I was thinking about is I believe a lot of people take things that happened to them before into the next relationship. And so, for instance, if you're somebody who has had people lie to you all the time, you take that same mentality into the next relationship. So that's all you find is people who lie to you and treat you horribly and all of that stuff because it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You don't ever get that out of your mind. It's like this luggage that you're carrying around where you think, okay, the next person is going to be exactly the same way. And for instance, if you don't level up and think that you are a person who is worthy of somebody who can treat you right. You're worthy of somebody who understands you. You're worthy of somebody who is authentic and you're worthy of somebody who knows that you are rare. Then we need to fix that feeling with inside of you before you start dating again. Because I think that you project whatever it is that you feel into the dating world, whether you realize it or not. And one of those things that's hard about that is if you go into dating thinking that everybody is horrible, then you're going to meet horrible people. Now, one thing that I've noticed here is that if you're a kind person, you're going to run into people of all walks of life, especially in dating. And sometimes they start off one way and then they kind of show you who they are. Now, it is your responsibility as a kind soul to treat them with respect, but it's also your responsibility to keep those boundaries set up to where if somebody shows you who they are, you believe them, right? So if somebody is starting off great and they're being nice and treating you well, but then all of a sudden they show you this very evasive side of them that runs or that does whatever, then they're basically showing you who they are. And so I believe people choose to do whatever they want to do whenever they are getting to know somebody or whenever they're in a relationship. And people need to stop kind of analyzing everything because that person chose to do what they wanted to do. Now, I am aware that there are people out there that just mistreat people on purpose. And so they just kind of collect hearts, and whenever they get finished with people's hearts, they throw them away and they move on to the next person. Now, to me, those type of people really don't need to be dating because I think it's horrible to treat somebody as if they're disposable. And if you're somebody who's out here ghosting people for no reason or whatever it is, if you can't have a conversation, you don't need to be dating either. I think that there's a point where you need to be grown enough. If you're grown enough to try to handle somebody else's heart, you need to be grown enough to have a conversation. It's so easy to sit there and run away from things and think, oh, well, I made the right decision by running away. But it's not. I mean, it just makes you look like you are a totally different person to that other person, especially if you started off being great and then all of a sudden you turn into this. That's who you were before. So how do we switch our mindset? How do we understand that when we're dating that we need to treat that other person right? First of all, we need to level up. We need to love ourselves more. We need to realize that if we want somebody to treat us well, we need to treat other people well. You cannot be in the dating scene treating people horribly and thinking, oh, I'm going to meet somebody wonderful after the person that I've just basically thrown away. That's not true. Because the things that you do will come back to you. And so I believe if you're somebody who's dating and you've been in a toxic relationship beforehand, what you need to do is pray and allow God to release your mind from all those memories of that toxic relationship. And it may take time. Everything takes a little bit of time, but the more that you are basically experiencing memory loss from the bad things, when somebody good comes into your life, you're going to recognize them. And I'm not speaking from a male or female perspective. I'm speaking from a perspective of everybody who is dating. It's one of those things where you have to I'm not taking sides with either one, male or female. This is a conversation that I'm having in general with everybody. And I think that the more that you understand that when you're dating, you're dealing with somebody's heart, right? And the more you play with people's emotions, you're wasting their time, and you're also making them feel like there is nobody else out there for them because it's just one game after the next. Now, how would you feel if you get in a situation and you get to know somebody and you're starting to have feelings for them and you're in a relationship, and then all of a sudden that person just falls off with no word, nothing. And then all of a sudden you just think, well, wait a minute, this person showed me that they were this way, but now they've fallen off the face of the earth. Or maybe that person has become very distant, or they've become very mean and rude, or whatever it may be. You would begin to see a different perspective about that person, right? But the reality is that person wasn't showing you who they were to begin with. They were showing you a projection of who they wanted to be in order for you to be interested in them, right? So that was their game that they played in order to get to your heart. And so whenever they got to your heart, they think, okay, well, I can just let that down. And, to me, I believe that love, true love, sticks around through everything. Not abuse or not toxic situations, but I'm talking about like life situations, challenging life situations. So if you really care about somebody, you're sticking around. If somebody's sick or somebody's family is going through a hardship, or, they lose a loved one, they're there for you if they care about you. But if they don't care about you, they're running at the first sign of adversity. Now you might say, well, why do people do this? But it's simple, because they don't care. It's because they don't care. It has nothing to do with their life at that time. Maybe that person was just there for a certain amount of time in their lives to help them through something. But whenever that person decides to throw the other person away, they begin to seek their next person to play games with. And to me, that's hard, because I think that God has gifted us with so much love. He's given us so many things. And you might say, Anita, why are you going in so hard on this topic? Because I see it all the time on social media, and I hear people talking to me about how hard it is to date. And it should not be rocket science to date. It should be something that is, whenever two godly people come together, they should be trying to figure out, okay, hey, can I fit in this person's life with what's their relationship with the Lord? What's their worship style? How do they act whenever problems arise in their life? How do they treat other people? Those are things that you should be asking. You shouldn't have to worry about if this person is being genuine with you. I feel like from a Christian dating perspective, it's hard because you meet some people who say they're Christians and then their behavior is just so different. It's not congruent to somebody who truly loves the Lord. It's congruent to somebody who's out there playing games and trying to manipulate. But how do you change that? It all starts with you. It all starts with you. Whenever you have boundaries, you set those boundaries in a way to where somebody has to meet your standards. Now, is that saying that you're better than somebody else? No. That's just saying these are my boundaries and this is what I will and will not put up with. So if you're an intentional person and the other person is not intentional, or they show you that they don't care about other people, then that needs to be where your boundaries stop. They need to stop, and you need to say, you know what? This person is not for me. They're not for me if they cannot love other people or be good to other people. Or let's say you're somebody and you have boundaries set to where you want to be with somebody who's honest, and you see where they start being dishonest. It does not take rocket science to stop whenever you see that person is not being who they said they were. I just think that we spend a lot of time wasting our emotions and feelings because of what somebody has said and what they've done, but all you have to do is just look at their behavior. One of the things that I love about old school romance is that it was more straightforward. And so I witnessed my grandparents' love for each other. And one of the things that I love is that they were best friends. And my granddad would always be telling my grandmother stories and things like that. And he would make them breakfast. And my granddad could not cook at all. But he'd make eggs and, he'd be in there trying. And so that would be their time when they would just talk and, talk about the day and talk about memories. And it was one of those things where I just sat there and I just thought to myself, how amazing would it be to meet somebody where you could just talk about things with and just live life together, and you do not worry about if they leave, or you don't worry about when hard times come your way, because you know that that person is going to be there for you. You see, we failed whenever we have become a generation that walks out whenever people are hurting. We have failed whenever we have become a generation of people who cannot be truthful about who we are. So we just run along and we collect hearts and we just take names, basically. And we don't try to have feelings for anybody. We don't care about who we hurt. We don't care about what we've done. We just try to move on to the next person as quickly as possible. And meanwhile, God is saying, my children have failed in this area because they're not treating each other well. And this is within the Christian community. This is not within the world. This is a lot going on in the Christian community. And so I see this trend of people who are just like, well, wait a minute. If people in the church are acting this way, then where in the world am I going to meet somebody? And I don't want to discourage anybody from meeting somebody in church, but I do want to encourage you to pray and be so mindful of the fact that anybody can say anything. You have to examine their fruit. You have to examine where it is that they're coming from and see if they are meaningful people and they're like-minded in your beliefs and all of that. But my main thing is, I want to speak to women and men in this post-dating era, I don't know, this post-non-emotional, non-attachment era. So women, I want you to realize that there is somebody great out there for you. There's somebody out there that's going to love you. There's somebody out there who is praying for a woman who possesses the exact traits that you possess. But right there in the middle of that, you have to hang on to who you are. So don't let up on your boundaries. If you've set great boundaries and they're solid and they're things that you absolutely won't, don't let up on that. The right guy will believe in you and he will show you who he is. But at the same time, if you've been hurt in the past and you feel like, oh, all men are terrible and all of this, I want you to pray about that and let that go. Because the more that you hang on to that, you're always going to run into men who act a certain way and treat you a certain way.